Hey y'all, welcome back to Exile Wargaming, where today, and as always, we're still talking about Harlequins in a Warhammer 40k battle report against the Ultramarines in the Blades of Ultramar Detachment. Now, I couldn't be more excited to get this on the table. This is everything I have wanted over the past couple years. The new Serpents Brood Detachment, I truly believe, gives Harlequins 100% true and pure a path to victory. It may not be the most optimal way to play Eldari, but it can definitely stand on its own two legs, which is something we couldn't say over the past couple years. So we're bringing two Troop Masters, bare bones, another Troop Master with the Weaver's Wail, a Death Jester with Fanged Leer, and a Solitaire to round out the character spot. We're maxing out our troops at 6 5-mans and 5 Star Weavers for them to go into. Unfortunately, one of our troop units is going to have to camp the home field or back objective, maybe screen that backfield a good bit. So bringing that 6 Star Weaver didn't quite make sense. We're bringing one big unit of Sky Weavers with Haywire and Zephyr Glaives, and then two more 2-man units to back it up. Something I never thought I would put back on the table are Void Weavers. Anyone who's watched this channel over the past couple years knows that I have a sort of hate relationship with them, but let's hope that the new sustained buff and all of our pretty excellent stratagems allow them to be a little bit more impactful, especially for their points, than they have been. The goal of this list is to pretty much tackle the game the same way we have utilizing our Craftworld counterparts, but instead of utilizing things like Corsairs or Rangers or Shroud Runners or Swooping Hawks to move block our opponents and create kind of awkward scenarios, we're going to shift the role of some of our troops and our small Skyweaver units to take on that and see where we land from there. We're coming in at 19 total units at 1,995 points. Now our opponent is bringing a pretty stock standard good stuff Ultramarines list. He has Marnius Calgar attached to a 6-man unit of Vitrix Honor Guard, Uriel Ventress attached to a 6-man unit of Honor Guard, and a Combi Lieutenant in the character spots. He's bringing an Intercessor squad, an Incursor squad, a Scout squad, 2 Repulsor Executioners, 2 Vindicators, and a Ballistus Dreadnought. He's coming in at 12 total units at 2,000 points on the nose. I am very glad I am showing up to this fight with a whole bunch of Skyweavers. We'll be playing Mission O, which is Terraform in Crucible of Battle style deployment on GW Terrain Layout 1. Now, getting into deployment, our opponent has a ton of really big vehicles. Now, unfortunately for us, we don't have anything that scouts at this point in time. We don't have any infiltrators that we can utilize to just jail his repulsors and vindicators back here. So we're going to have to play a little bit more of a traditional game, fighting over objectives in waves. Now, fortunately for us, we did outdrop our opponent, and we waited and held off the Skyweavers as long as we could. So they are going to be positioned where they can take angles wherever it is they need to go. We put these last 2 units of Skyweavers over here after our opponent deployed their Vindicator on this side of the board. So this was pretty nice for us. We'll see if we get to go first, what happens from here. Everything else is just a pretty good amount of symmetry. So we have a Void Weaver and 4 Skyweavers on this section. We have a Void Weaver and 4 Skyweavers up here. We have both of our Troop Masters, one with Weaver's Wail, towards the mid board if they want to crash out and hold either the middle or protect our natural expansion. They can definitely do that. We have a couple bare bones Skyweavers. There's another one with a Troop Master right here, and then there's a bare bone on this section of the board, and then another just kind of solo troop unit in this Star Weaver. I really just want to attack his natural expansion in waves and force him to hold it with one of these vehicles. As soon as that happens, we can just start laying waste to whatever it is that we see. Hopefully, 4-ups are a little bit fickle. We get to do a good amount of damage. Otherwise, the Solitaire is just positioned in the middle to move up and do whatever he may need early on. I love having a lone op. Having 2 is actually really, really nice. So we can force our opponent to come out by placing one in the middle objective if they're playing a little bit cagey. And then we can really reasonably hold our natural expansion for a couple turns with something as simple as a Death Jester. So if our opponent wants to throw out something like a unit of Vitrix Honor Guard to come for that and leave him out in the open for a turn, I'm really happy to do just that. If he gets within 9, we have a reactive move, and we could just keep playing that game back and forth. So we get a lot of options here to play the game, but we'll see kind of where it takes us. Our opponent, on the other hand, deployed everything pretty stock standard. He's got a Repulsor Executioner and a Vindicator over here, another Executioner in the midboard, and then a Vindicator down here. He's got a unit of Intercessors holding his home field. I think there's a unit of Incursors right here, and then Marneus Calgar and the Vitrix Honor Guard right here behind this wall. They do get advance in charge, so he can move himself into all of this pretty reasonably in this detachment. Otherwise, there's a Ballistus up top here. We can kind of see this coming. He's most likely going to try to control this line of sight, with the Repulsor being able to come up here. If he holds all of this on this objective, this will be really, really tough for us early on. But we win the turn 1 dice roll and get to go first. I think this is a perfect trial for an army like this. Now, all we're going to do is start moving up a few of our units to start harassing our opponent and make him do something. The go turn on something like this is most likely going to be after he gets to Rapid Ingress Uriel Ventress. I can only imagine that the goal of this is to lay down a whole bunch of firepower, clear some objectives with repulsors, and then overwhelm us with really tough and durable Vitrix units. Units that can tie up everything that we have. They have -1 to wound. He can apply -1 to wound to a bunch of his vehicles and just kind of grind us out over the course of the game. So what we are going to do to start this off, we draw extend battle lines and engage on all fronts. I'm going to push the Solitaire up immediately to start bullying this Combi Weapon Lieutenant. If the Combi Weapon Lieutenant does not reactive move, we get to beat it down with a Solitaire, move back to the objective, and then re-embark into the Starweaver. If he does move it away, we get to take this center objective and utilize it to allow the Solitaire to get back into it afterwards. The unit that was inside of this Starweaver moved back over here to screen this back objective or this wall so that Uriel Ventress doesn't have a really great deep strike later on. Everything else just kind of stayed patient. We moved up a bare bones Starweaver up here to just throw some OC on this objective and just put our opponent on the back foot early on. We don't want him holding this with something like scouts for the entirety of the game. So this is pretty solid for us. And then I believe our opponent made a pretty crucial error in his deployment with this Vindicator. We end up moving our Void Weaver and 2 units of Skyweavers over here, and then we get this Death Jester on this objective as well, and we are able to bring down the Vindicator on turn 1. So our opponent is immediately starting this game off with a handicap. We're going to score on our secondaries, extend battle lines, we're going to get 1 point for engage on all fronts, and then we're going to bring the Solitaire back into the Starweaver at the end of it. In our opponent's turn 1, he just starts staging for the remainder of the game. He moves the Repulsor Executioner that was right here all the way down towards this section of the board and gets a really great angle into our Skyweavers. Unfortunately, he can't shoot into the Void Weeper. He does split fire and is able to bring down 1 of these units entirely, and then another one is left at 3 wounds remaining. We have a full bike there. We are going to hold this objective coming into this as well. I believe this Starweaver was the Oath of Moment target, and the Ballistus Dreadnought, unfortunately for us, brought it down in its first wave. We didn't even get to the missiles. He hit with the last cannon. We failed with the save. He rolled 6 on the damage, and the Solitaire popped out and is going to hold this objective. Everything else just kind of moves around to play the game. I think he's positioning for a long one, but he scores 3 points on recover assets and 2 on marked for death, bringing down this Starweaver. In our turn 2, we get a 14 on primary and then draw Display of Might and no prisoners. The goal here is just to start eliminating resources, as many of them as we can. Our opponent's only entering this game with 12 of them, so every single one of them means that we're eventually going to force his heavy hitters to sit on objectives. That's all we want to do. We're holding everything back over here. There are a lot of angles that we could have taken, but we're going to use the pieces that I don't feel are nearly as beneficial to us in the long run in the early game. So both of the Void Weavers come up. Our units, or our Solitaire, positions all the way up here, and then he tries to reactive move with the incursors. Unfortunately, he only gets like a 2, and he can't quite get them in range here. At the end of our movement phase, he rapid ingressed Uriel Ventress right here, and I think the goal was to try to get them into heroic intervention range. Unfortunately for him, it's not going to happen. We bring up our unit of troops that was back here in the Star Weaver to take this objective back. He reactive moves the Combi Lieutenant up here, and then we're going to try to put some shots with everything else over here into this Ballistus Dreadnought. We do terraform, so I'm not entirely sure that this guy fired, but we put our fusion pistols into the repulsor. It does nothing. I think we had a neuro pistol as well, and it did nothing over here, but we throw grenades into the Ballistus, and I think we got like 4 wounds through in just that. And then between the other Void Weaver and this Star Weaver, we're able to bring it down to just 1 or 2 wounds remaining. Now, what we did over here with this lone Sky Weaver is we pushed him all the way up. I wanted to kind of eliminate good rapid ingress threats, but I didn't want to throw away too many units. I didn't see this pocket here, and this is where Ventress ended up dropping. So this unit came up here to kind of block the path of the repulsor for a turn. If he got a really big advance or something like that, I didn't want him all the way across the board with a threat of, potentially charging the Death Jester and stealing this objective from us. So he's going to come up here, put some shots in. I don't think he does any wounds, and everything else just waits for the inevitable push our opponent is going to have to make. In the fight phase, or the charge phase, we charge our Harlequin troop into the Ballistus Dreadnought over here, and we charge the Solitaire into the repulsor and the incursors. Now, unfortunately for us, even with a blitz, he used Armor of Contempt, and we only killed 2 incursors with the Solitaire. They did fight back. We were fortunate. He survived on just 1 wound remaining, but it was this troop down here bringing down the Ballistus that I was really kind of happy about. So we do get to come back towards the objective with a token and then re-embark into the Star Weaver afterwards. Now, fortunately for us, our opponent only scored 4 points in primary on that turn and draws Attempting Target and Area Denial. So he's really incentivized to kind of push this midboard. Everything over here starts crashing up. The Repulsor Executioner at the bottom moves forward. Marnius Calgar's unit advances forward. They easily bring down this Sky Weaver. Unfortunately, the Void Weavers can't be targeted by this Repulsor, but this one did just enough. He's going to come up, touch the objective, falling back from the Solitaire. I think he used a Tactical Doctrine, something like that, the fallback shoot and charge strat up here. And then brings down both this Star Weaver and the Void Weaver. The troop that were inside are just going to pile down over here. The Combi Weapon Lieutenant again moves towards this objective, and then the Incursors fell back from the Solitaire as well. I think he was brought down by the Vindicator. Uriel Ventress's unit is then going to move up, and this, I believe, is what finished off maybe it was this Void Weaver. They may not have a great shot to shoot anything at all, but they decided not to come into this Void Weaver, I believe, now that I'm thinking about it now. So I think he brought down a Star Weaver, a Void Weaver, and this Sky Weaver down here. We are losing a good bit of resources, and our opponent's forces are just right in our faces. So in the charge phase, Uriel Ventress's unit is the only one to make comeback, so we can kind of take a deep breath and prepare for the next turn. He easily brings down the Void Weaver and scores 5 points in area denial. In our turn 3, we score 9 points in primary and then draw Sabotage and Cleanse. The perfect time to draw a bunch of action secondary. So this was pretty fun, but our patience seems like it may have paid off. Against any of these armies that are a little bit slower, as soon as they hit themselves towards that midboard, we have the ability to just collapse with everything, reset in our Star Weavers, and then force our opponent to deal with them activation by activation. So this is what I was hoping for throughout this game. I'm glad it's kind of playing out this way, but it'll come down to rolling a whole bunch of 4-ups. So what we did is finally brought out the Sky Weavers here to deal with this Repulsor Executioner, and fortunately for us, they went wild and dropped 15 devastating wounds on the Repulsor Executioner, bringing him down to just 1 remaining. Now, we were not able to finish it off with the troop. They missed with all of their fusion pistols that was over here. We did bring out all of our Star Weavers and their troop inside to kind of line Uriel Ventress's unit. This unit was 3 inches away. This unit got within 3 inches away. We fired with one of them. The closest unit that we placed was a troop inside of a Star Weaver to the Victrix. So we were going to fire in 9 fusion pistols regardless into the Victrix unless he surged into one of us. The unit that we made closest was the Star Weaver with all the troops inside. We brought down a couple with all of the shooting from one of these units, and then when the Star Weaver got to shoot in combat with all the Harlequins and their pistols inside, we brought down another 3. We may have spent 2 points on a grenade this turn as well, but bringing down 5 Victrix Guard with a couple Harlequin troops was amazing. Now, whatever we want to do from here, we can. If we want to bring down, if maybe we want to charge Marneus Calgar's unit or something like that, we can, or we can just pop back into these Star Weavers and hopefully activation lock our opponent for the long haul. So our shooting phase was incredible. We almost killed a repulsor, and we brought down almost an entire unit of Victrix. So in the charge phase, we move our Troop Master with Weaver's Wail into Uriel and the lone Victrix Guard, and then our Sky Weavers and unit of Harlequin troops move into the Repulsor. We start off with the Troop Master, and he is just so damn good. Getting +1 to wound twice and overcoming the Victrix, their -1 to wound, is just so great. He also has 6 attacks, getting sustained. Sometimes you roll him up because you're re-rolling ones, and you're getting 8 attacks. You roll a bunch of dev wounds, and he just goes to town. So he very handily dealt with Uriel Ventress. I am so happy about it. We even painted up a new guy with a big old green sword. I know it doesn't look great, but we're having fun. The Sky Weavers were fortunately able to bring down the Repulsor, which allowed us to 6-inch consolidate the closest unit over here, which was the Incursors, but we're only able to bring down 2 of them, losing 1 of our Harlequin troops in return. Everything else just re-embarks into their Star Weavers, and we're putting it on our opponent to make something happen. We're going to use Weaver's Coil at the end of this turn and get these Sky Weavers way back out of dodge. In our opponent's turn 3, he scores another 4 in primary. To be frank, I believe this should be a 5. He did terraform up here the past turn, so I think we're scamming him a couple points at the end of this game. We'll make sure that we add it in the total. But he draws no prisoners and behind enemy lines. Now, at this point in the game, he's got to make the push. He's got to hope that durability makes something happen. Everything starts moving into our mid board. He moves the Repulsor all the way up here, and we reactive move the Death Jester behind this wall. He also brings his unit of Scouts up over here. I maybe to shoot down whatever this Repulsor can bring down as well, or just be a resource on this section of the board. The Vindicator moves up towards this objective. This was the Oath target up here, and he brings down 2 of the Sky Weavers. The Repulsor, or I'm sorry, Marneus Calgar's unit over here fires into this Star Weaver, and we just scammed him on some saves. Fortunately, we are left alive at just 1 wound remaining. And then this Repulsor down here very easily brings down 1 of our Star Weavers. It split fire, didn't bring down the other, and we used Fade Back to make sure that we protected the guys inside. So in the charge phase, our opponent makes a couple easy charges, the Combi Weapon Lieutenant and the Vindicator into our Harlequin troop, and then Marnius Calgar's unit goes into our 1 wound Starweaver. This was such a bad scam. We moved back our Starweaver up here earlier in the turn, though, just to make sure that he couldn't charge everything that we had. But scam or not, he wrapped it in the emergency disembark. We lost our entire troop. The troop master is alive on full wounds remaining, but I definitely didn't have that one on my bingo card. Our opponent's going to score 4 points in no prisoners and 0 in behind enemy lines. So in our turn 4, we are scoring less and less primary as this game goes on. We walk out with 6 and then draw area denial and overwhelming force. I believe we pitch area denial and then get assassination. Now we did some of this in the wrong order, so please learn from my mistakes. We ended up falling back with one of our troops that survived somehow up here, and then moved our troop master up to go after the Combi Weapon Lieutenant. So the Combi Weapon Lieutenant then gets to reactive move. If we would have just done this first and then fell back with the troop, we would have eliminated the reactive move. So make sure if you're tying someone up and they have reactive moves, do your fallback the last thing. We move our Skyweavers up as well. We throw a grenade with the troop master into this Vindicator, and we're able to bring this down to just 1 wound remaining. So between the fusion pistol, the Skyweavers, and grenades, we almost brought down a Vindicator, which is pretty nice for us. We're going to leave our troop over here on the home field objective, and this is so our opponent has to make a decision. The distance away is not as simple as he's 6 inches away and he's on the objective now. He will have to advance to get onto this point, but if he comes in 6, we can move back 6, and now he's not charging. Maybe he can bring down our guys with their 4 blasters and Marnius Calgar himself, but there's a good shot that we scam him and there's a guy or 2 left over with 4+ invulnerable saves. Then we have this unit to do something in the late game. If our opponent wants to stretch out between these 2 objectives, if we hold ourselves to 4 OC, we may be giving ourselves a good shot at making something go from there. So we're going to leave them there. Everything else is going to shift away from Calgar's brick. If you can't deal with it, just don't deal with it. Move away and get into a target you can make something happen into. So the troop master unit is going to come all the way down here to get into the repulsor executioner. The death jester is going to come out, and our barebone unit of troops that was lining this wall the whole game is going to pop out as well. The death jester fires into the scouts, and go figure, Fangolier is pretty good when your opponent is saving on 6s. He's able to bring down, I believe, all of the scouts. Maybe 1 was remaining. All the fusion pistols over here are going to go into the executioner, and maybe there's a couple neuro pistols that in shuriken that finish this off as well. We are able to bring down the repulsor. I think we only get 1 fusion through to 11 wounds remaining. Now, something I really loved, I haven't done this yet. At the end of last turn, we picked up our Starweaver with Troop Master and Weaver's Wail. We're going to drop it over here in our opponent's deployment zone. We fire everything we can. The fusion pistols aren't in range because we got to be outside a 9 into the intercessors, and we are able to bring them down. Now, even if we weren't at this point, we do have Venomous Wrath, which is really, really nice. If we leave a guy there, we can test this objective, even though it's stickied, so we're not going to lose it. But the following turn, we just hold it for the remainder of the game. So that's pretty nice for us. The Starweaver itself could pop out over here and then use Venomous Wrath that kind of fire and fade and get itself on this objective. Not something I see myself doing all the time, but it's a really nice resource to have in the late game. In the fight phase, we move our Troop Master into that Combi Weapon Lieutenant. We are able to bring him down, but just barely, which is kind of wild, and we get 5 points in Assassination. We move everything down here into the repulsor and are pretty easily able to pick it up. Putting the repulsor on, 3+ or even 4+ saves if he doesn't Armor of Contempt, and then letting the Troop Master go a little bit ham. I think he did maybe 6 wounds to the repulsor by himself, and then just this mass volume, almost 50 attacks, all at +1 to wound, -1 AP. Some of them are -2, and devastating wounds. Very handily brought this down. I thought repulsors for the longest time were 2+ saves, but I believe there are 3, and that changes the math just a good bit in comparison to something like a Land Raider. And then to end the turn, we finish off this Vindicator with our Skyweavers up here. We're going to use Weaver's Coil and get some OC on this objective. All we're doing at this point in the game is trying to deny our opponent as many points as possible. And moving into our opponent's turn 4, he scores a 0 on primary because we contested up here. He moves everything he can to try to hold a couple objectives and get some points. We reactive move our troop off, and the game is pretty much over, leaving us the victor, 85 to what I would reasonably assume to be probably 45. We were off a bit on this scoring, looking back into this game. As I go through the images, something always comes up that we did wrong or not. There's never a perfect game of Warhammer, but our opponent could have scored quite a few more points here. But it was much, much better than expected. While our opponent did make a really critical error in deployment early on, we kind of scammed him on a Vindicator, and the game was filled with a lot of really unpredictable swings. The Incursors surviving in the middle of the board for the entire game, losing an entire troop to emergency disembark, but our opponent also not being able to bring the Star Weaver down in shooting was a lot, but we still learned a ton in the process. This felt like a really great example to just highlight how a high volume of units can oftentimes overcome just far superior data sheets. Everything our opponent was doing was better. Just laundry lists of rules and shots and damage across the board. But we had OC, speed, and bodies. The Skyweavers kind of felt like cheating a little bit in this matchup. They were pretty ideal with a million targets, 2 Vindicators, 2 Repulsors, Ballistas, and a bunch of Marine bodies to get gobbled up by Zephyrglaives. These guys were MVPs this game. The Void Weavers, while not efficient, I don't think they're efficient at all for their points, did play a significant role as just a support piece. I was pleasantly surprised for sure. I would never run Void Weavers and count on their damage, but running them, the threat of their damage is what makes your opponent have to play a little bit different. And if you do get it through, maybe you get a few prismatic cannon shots in, or maybe you use the blast profile to get rid of some trash with a bunch of shuriken cannons. I mean, it could be very useful. It's nice being able to place something on the mid board, especially if we had some move blocks where our opponent could not shoot it utilizing long firing lanes. When your opponent's utilizing, last cannons, things like that from the edges and the corners of the board, it's like having an extra lone op. So that is a very solid resource. Something else I liked about the Void Weavers is that they complement the Skyweavers very, very well. The Skyweavers aren't great. They don't kill everything that they go into. Oftentimes they fall pretty short. But being able to pepper a unit with a few Void Weaver shots, not worry about losing the Void Weaver unit because of the 18-inch lone op, and then finish it off with the Skyweavers afterwards feels so much more fulfilling. Then we can take advantage of Weaver's Coil and start recycling all of our units. So the Void Weavers are decent there. I wouldn't go out of my way to do it, but if you're playing MONOQUINS, you kind of have to play something to fill those points anyway. Void Weavers weren't too bad. The fusion pistols are incredible into Vitrix, and open top was highly relevant. Our opponent had an option to take 9 fusion pistol shots and a bunch of shuriken cannons, or take a bunch of shuriken cannons and 6 fusion pistols, and it was still enough to get rid of most of Uriel Ventress's brick. We didn't roll super hot, we didn't roll bad, our opponent didn't roll poor. It came pretty close to the average on what should have been done there. But this army felt like an army we would have done very well into with move blocks. I mean, Ultramarines and just big, heavy tanks and kind of slow infantry. But it was nice to see that we had some game without having to use those aggravating kind of move block tactics. I'm very, very interested to see this into other factions. I love that we were able to kind of shift back into the multiple wave of attack style approach as opposed to the move blocks specifically. But I think we'd struggle a bit into something like Monster Mash. Otherwise, I believe we have a reasonable shot into most of the fields. Overall, I just really enjoy the simplicity of this list. It allows for just a streamlined, recreatable game plan that can adjust on the fly. I believe, honestly and truly, that familiarity with your list and what it's capable of is far more important than trying to force whatever the meta or the internet states is the absolute optimal choice. We know that there are better units at better points cost that do more damage or provide more utility, but if we want to approach the game as a Harlequin player, we have to use what we have. And something that's really nice about Harlequins is everything kind of does everything. Everything could fill every role. We can use our basic Harlequin troops getting out of a Starweaver to advance and charge up the board and get onto an objective, contest it with multiple bits of OC, or we can utilize our Skyweavers if they don't have great targets to get into to be a solid move block or pick up trash or trade across the game. There are a lot of things that we can do if we understand our army and we can shift their roles mid-game. Something about the simplicity of this list just really, really got to me. Not having to remember a bunch of data sheets and rules. It was pretty much the same piece throughout the entirety of the game, and we're just kind of playing checkers while everyone else is trying to play chess, and somehow we can walk out the victor. But I hope you enjoyed. I had a blast playing this game, and I'm going to go so far as to say this was my absolute favorite game utilizing the Serpents of Brood detachment. Sometimes it's not about putting the most optimal competitive units on the board. Sometimes it's about just playing the army you truly want to play. And if you're anything like me, someone who's been dying to get mono Harlequins on the table for the past couple years, I think now is the time. I don't think we're going to be racing to the top of the leaderboards of the competitive scene, but I think we have enough here to play a lot of really enjoyable games and come out the victor far more than we have been over the past couple years. But thank you again. Please like, share, subscribe, join the Discord. The community is absolutely incredible, and I will see you all in the next video.